All right, before we go across to our political guests, I want to introduce our CNN News 18 team and their analysis first up. Remember, yesterday we previewed the Prime Minister's speech. Now we've heard it for over 2 hours. Let's analyze this. I'm joined by Managing Editor Zaka Jacob, Political Editor Aman Sharma, and also our Consulting Editor Nalin Mehta. My colleague Pallavi is also joining us from, of course, Central Delhi. I'm presuming, Pallavi, where you would have kept an eye on the Parliament proceedings. Nalin, why don't I begin with you? What was the highlight of the Prime Minister's speech for you today?
So I think before the Prime Minister started, before the debate started, a lot of people thought that by bringing a no confidence motion, the opposition is giving an open field to the Prime Minister to set the template for the narrative for 2024. I think in his long speech, this was a Prime Minister who was very confident. This was a Prime Minister who, if you compare Rahul Gandhi's speech with his speech, it's a difference between a political speech and a really political speech. But look at the narrative and the tonality. It was very positive to begin with. He talked about his achievements.
The changes in the country.
He talked very specifically about the contradictions within the India Alliance.
Yes.
Very specifically across the parties. And essentially his primary talking point in that was that, look, for all of this alliance of 26 parties, it is my vision versus their vision. What is their vision? Yeah. And I think by driving that point home, he scored. I think he was very specific on that point. On the Northeast and Manipur, he continued what Amit Shah was saying yesterday about the historical legacy of the issues in Manipur. But look, he spoke almost more than half an hour on the Northeast.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about the silence on Manipur. There's been a lot of talk about that the Prime Minister has gone to Northeast so many times before, but he hasn't spoken now. But by specifically talking about Manipur and also in the historical context of from the Aizawl bombings of 1966 to all of that.
And the High Court recent verdict.
Exactly.
Aman, what he did say on Manipur, we should run some more of his graphics on what he said on Manipur, because he did spend a lot of time on it. And opposition maybe missed a trick by walking out before he touched Manipur. Because I think they was getting a little angsty that he's not talking about Manipur, he's talking about everything else. But he did talk about Manipur. He said that Congress is the root cause of all the problems that Northeast has faced. Nehru deliberately ignored Northeast. We have tried to develop Northeast, and in the end he also said the public, the country and the parliament is with the people and the women of Manipur. So he tried to assure the people, the citizens there as well.
It is very ironic, Shivani, because the whole no confidence motion was brought by the opposition to make the PM speak on Manipur.
Yes.
And when the PM spoke on Manipur, the opposition walked out before that.
Had already
so it is pretty ironic, and obviously the Prime Minister wanted to speak on Manipur, maybe not in the same length as Mr. Amit Shah did. And when the Prime Minister spoke, he did say that Mr. Amit Shah has given a nearly 2-hour long address on Manipur yesterday and explained things in detail, but still the PM went in a lot of detail on himself also. But I think besides the Manipur question, there are also 3-4 big messages I would take from the PM speech. One, that he's clearly said that he's coming back with a bang in 2024. He's coming back with a bigger mandate. He said opposition ko ye pasand nahi hai ki garib ka beta pradhan mantri ban gaya hai. Also the point, I think the second major point, that where he says the opposition alliance does not stand any chance. It's full of arrogance. It is like putting a coat of paint on a rusted machine. So he said that this is basically new packaging of an old product. His attack on Rahul Gandhi, without naming Rahul Gandhi, I think is very significant. Multiple points he's raised against Rahul
Gandhi. Also in 2018, he didn't name Rahul Gandhi. We did a word cloud of his speech in 2018. We'll do an analysis later, Zaka, of course, 2018 versus 2023. But then too, he had not named Rahul Gandhi, but there were jibes. Today also, he hasn't named Rahul Gandhi. But more specifically, he said the language used by Rahul Gandhi, that Bharat Mata was killed in Manipur, was highly objectionable.
Yeah, I mean, he went on to contrast how Ma Bharati, these are the people who didn't believe in Ma Bharati, they didn't talk about Vande Mataram, they didn't adopt Vande Mataram because it would offend one section of India. For me, the standout were two things. One, obviously, this is a speech for 2024. This is not a speech so much for a no confidence motion reply or for Manipur, because the amount of time he spent on Manipur was not as much as, let's say what Amit Shah spent yesterday. This was setting the stage for what his government has done in the last 9 years and what is it that the opposition is saying that they are offering. I think he's clearly drawing a contrast that this is India's time. He said that 2-3 times at the start, that this is India's time, the 21st century belongs to India. And I think in the second half of his speech, he was trying to draw the contrast that if this is India's time, then he is the man and his government should be the one that
You need a
is leading
strong,
the country.
decisive government, not the India bloc, which has multiple PM aspirants. Let me go to Pallavi also with that. Pallavi, we were discussing exactly this yesterday. Rahul Gandhi is back. I don't know whether temporary or not as a parliamentarian, but that's the contradiction the Prime Minister was bound to establish in his speech today. The Parivarvad, the corruption of the opposition bloc, their need to come together despite their contradictions, and of course the multiple aspirants for the Prime Minister's position.
And frankly speaking, I found no surprises there, because this was a given that the Prime Minister would certainly seize this opportunity to hit back at the Congress party, to hit back at the India front opposition, and he relentlessly did that. And therefore, I think his almost 2-hour long speech actually became a very, very strong pitch as far as the campaign for not just the state elections but also for 2024. I think he just went on to hurt the Congress party where it hurts it the most. In a sense, it also forced the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi particularly to either come back to Lok Sabha not once but twice. He walked in, he went to a speaker's office. He also put in an appeal that why was his comment expunged. He comes out, gives a soundbite, then he goes inside the Lok Sabha, and then of course he walks out with the rest of his party colleagues, led by Sonia Gandhi of course, and many of the India front opposition. And that's when the Prime Minister spoke about Manipur. I think consistently the point which and the thread really of the Prime Minister's speech was the fact that every time you find a fault with us, we've actually delivered. What is something you should have done, we've delivered in the 10 years that we have been in power. And I think the big wrap up, and I think that's the electoral slogan, that I am going to make India number 3, rest assured on that. That is very clearly going to be the kind of a poll promise. And frankly speaking, he also did have a point when he said that, you know, you are criticizing me all the time, but what is it that you're offering to the people? Absolutely. You know, political parties, when they criticize their political opponents, often run the risk of not offering a positive alternative. I think the way we are looking at the India Front's agenda, the India Front's campaign till now, they have spent much of their energy and time in criticizing the government, but at the end of the day, voters vote for alternatives and options.
In fact, Pallavi, the Prime Minister even said that they don't even ask the right questions. They don't ask, how are you going to do something? They just run down everything that the government says that they're going to do. I'm going to thank all of our colleagues for joining us. Pallavi, of course, outside, and my colleagues here in the studio as well. Thanks a lot for your top comments. And of course, now let's take it across to our guests joining us for the debate on the Prime Minister's